Welcome to Innovators at the Intersection. I'm Jordan Weiss, and with my co-host, Jess Petzion, we engage with change makers that are shaping the future.
Produced by Creative World Media.
This podcast is an extension of Diversity in Action magazine that's been highlighting innovation for over a decade. On today's episode of Innovators at the Intersection, we're excited to feature Cheri Walsh. Cheri has over 25 years experience in philanthropic arts, and she's currently the director for the Joel Foundation, where she works closely with both Billy and Alexis Joel to help advance arts education and community impact. We're excited to have her here today. Great to have you with us today, Cheri.
Thank you. It's great to be here.
Great. So we'll dive right in. So you grew up in California, you moved to New York, and you're a dancer.
All of that is true.
Okay. So, from what I understand, it was, I guess it was, and maybe it still is, very competitive and intense, and it really tested your resilience from, what I imagine. And the connection between, your career as a dancer and now in the world of philanthropic arts. Could you kind of connect the dots and walk us through a little bit about that experience and how, one kind of fed into the other?
I can.
Okay.
My life as a dancer completely informed my life as a professional.
Okay.
A mentor of mine, Joe Tremaine, based in LA, who's built the careers of many dancers and choreographers, says dance training is life training. And it's true. The rejection that you receive, and I received my fair share as a dancer, it's a real skill to get cut from an audition and then rally yourself to get to the next one.
Yeah, I could only imagine.
And do it again and do it again and do it again. And the direct correlation is fundraising.
Right.
You get way more, you get more no's
Of course.
than you get yeses.
Yeah.
And so the best you can do is try to learn from the experience. Was my technique not strong enough in that audition? Was my storytelling not compelling enough in that proposal?
Wow.
Right? So there's a feedback loop
Right.
as an artist that translates into the professional world in an incredible way. The dancers know how to be in a space.
Right.
They know how to read a room. They know how to stand in front when it makes sense, and they know how to stand in the back when it makes sense.
Okay.
It takes confidence to stand in front, to lead a meeting. It takes humility to know when you should be in the back and when you should be listening in a meeting.
Right.
Right?
Exactly. Yeah.
And I think that, frankly, the most important correlation is how it informed how I lead a team or a staff. I don't ask my team to do anything that I wouldn't do.
Lead by example.
Lead by example.
Yeah.
I came up on scholarships at dance studios, cleaning rosin out of the corners of the dance studios with a toothbrush.
Oh, wow.
I learned that newspapers make the best tool to clean mirrors
Wow.
in a dance studio, right?
Yeah.
It's the truth.
I never knew that.
And so in nonprofits or even, say, startups in for-profit, it's a culture that demands that you're going to clean a room and talk to a corporate CEO all in the same day, maybe in the same hour, right? And so I have very little tolerance for prima donna behavior
Yeah.
from my
I get
team,
that.
right?
Yes, yeah. I have no tolerance for that at all.
Definitely being humble is a very good attribute or quality to have, especially when you are in all those spaces.
It's vital.
Yeah.
It really is.
It's vital. It's how you learn.
Were you tough on yourself as a dancer? I mean, were you very competitive, and were you I don't know. I mean, sounds like it was probably not easy, and it probably put you to the test.
It did. I will say, I think one of my strengths was not always, but I tended to embrace the hard. I tended to embrace it.
You leaned into it.
I leaned into it, and that means physical pain.
Right.
Of course.
It also means grappling with the realities of the industry. Things have changed for the better in the dance world. There is much more body inclusivity in the dance world. That was not the case when I was coming up.
Yeah. So that's pressure.
And I typically was not the ideal in that given audition. And so it's a career that comes with a lot of complicated feelings about yourself.
So how did you make yourself the ideal person and got through the rejection during that time?
Yeah. I'll be very frank. I wasn't the ideal person because often I wasn't thin enough.
Oh, wow.
That's just that's just how it goes.
And that's rough. And I'm sure you weren't the only person feeling like
No,
that.
of course not. Of course not. And certainly back then, I worked with a lot of really wonderful choreographers and teachers. The industry was predominantly male at the time.
Okay.
Not a lot of female choreographers coming up. And so it is this really, it can be a very toxic kind of environment
Right.
where you're being told you're not thin enough and you don't look good enough.
Right.
That's tough. And I think my love for the art form and frankly, a bit of, well, I'll show you.
Yeah.
Which you had no choice,
Well,
right?
I'll show you.
Right. That kind of that edge, right?
Yeah.
That drive and that competitiveness.
Yeah, that edge served me well.
Good.
And in New York, you need that edge, right? I moved to New York.
that's right.
Yes, most definitely.
It was a whole different
yeah,
ballgame.
yeah, you
Tell me about it.
You have to
I
have
speak
the
from
edge.
experience. Yeah, it's
you have to.
crazy. Totally different atmosphere and lots of competition to be the ideal person.
right.
So definitely. So what would be like your most rewarding, I guess, memories? Because you're working for with iconic figures like, Billy Joel and Alexis. So tell me like a great memory that you have just being in part of the foundation and your experience there.
Yeah, I have a lot of moments that I'm really proud of. Lucky me. But there's one that stands apart. In March 2023, there was a mass shooting at a small private school in Nashville. There's been so many.
Yeah.
It may not register.
Yeah, I know. Yeah, it's
Right.
It's
There were 3 third graders that were killed
Hey.
and 3 adults, including their head of school. And a couple of weeks after that tragedy, Alexis called me and said, Billy and I really want to do something to support this school quietly and thoughtfully. And so over months, I built trust with the school community. At first, I didn't tell them who I worked for.
That must have been hard
It was hard.
to navigate that
And
whole situation.
It's the most beautiful community of people that should not have to be as resilient and graceful as they are.
Yeah.
So when we sat down ultimately and asked their wonderful music teacher, what's your dream for your music program? And she said, Cheri, I'd love a couple of keyboards. Such a teacher, right? They are
Right.
unaccustomed to dreaming in that way. And I said, we're going to think a little bigger. And fast forward with, of course, the Joel Foundation, Billy and Alexis's, enthusiastic support, and Four Wall, the company that provides the lighting and visual and the labor for Billy's tours and the largest around the world, wrapped our arms around the school and their music program and built art spaces, including renovated a theater. And I'm getting to the moment that I'm most proud of. It was just about a year after the shooting, so it was April 24.
Okay.
Part of Billy's crew moved to Nashville to tech Peter Pan Jr. for the 5th and 6th graders in this school.
Really?
So to see the power of art and music, to see families watch their kids be phenomenally happy
And community.
and
Together.
joyful.
Right.
When I'm sobbing in the corner, all the
Yeah.
tech guys are sobbing in the corner, And Billy and Alexis, with their family, came to the school and spent hours quietly sitting down on a bench, talking to the head of school about how she is and how they are and what do you need.
Very selfless.
Very selfless. Again, very quiet.
Right.
Right.
I guess the two sometimes, I guess they can go together.
They can go together. That's my proudest moment.
That's very, it's kind of powerful. Just a little.
Yep.
Wow.
Yeah.
That's
Sometimes the quiet, it's just so more profound than when you're loud and in the spotlight.
yeah, you're humble.
So
It
amazing.
sounds very humble.
Yeah.
But that's who they are.
So when you were at the Bennett, working for Tony Bennett's philanthropic foundation, that was public.
Correct.
And I mean, it was harder, I would imagine, or was it just different?
It was different, right? Different. I worked for Tony Bennett and his wife, Susan Benedetto, for 13 years.
Right. That's how you got your start, right?
Yeah. And I always thought to myself, oof, in this job, I started on third base. If I can't hit a home run with Tony Bennett as my co-founder and North Star and his magnificent wife, public school teacher. They started this incredible public high school in Queens.
Frank
Frank Sinatra School of the Arts.
Yep.
If I can't help make that successful with them, I don't deserve that job, right?
But you did make it
I
successful.
was part of a
Yeah.
team that made it very successful and very innovative in that space. They founded Frank Sinatra School of the Arts in partnership with the New York City Department of Education, the largest school district in the nation.
Yeah, that's kind of big.
That's huge.
Right.
When their friends were saying, oh, start a private school, start a charter school, don't do that. And this was in 1999. This was a long time ago. The Sinatra School opened in 2001.
Yeah, no, it doesn't feel like that long ago.
I know.
I was going to say it was.
Yeah.
It's like a blip.
And I look back on the development of that school that is a model in the nation at the city, the state, and the private sector partnership that made it happen. I just don't know how many of those we'll have anymore.
Yeah.
You know, it was really extraordinary.
Sounds like a true collaborative effort.
Very.
So a dancer,
Mhm.
and then you were like, I'm going to go into this space and giving back and, being part of this, funding. How did you get there?
Yeah. When I moved to New York, it was sight unseen. I had never been here before. I thought I was going to go to a couple of auditions and then head back to my life.
What year are we talking right now? Take us back to the time.
97.
Okay. Okay.
I thought I would be here a week. To my mom's horror, I called her and said, will you sell my car and send out the rest of my clothes?
Wow.
I cannot leave this place.
So you caught.
I just caught
Quickly.
the bug.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
The arts community here it's different. It's different than anywhere else. And I couldn't leave it.
In what way would you say?
I think, call me a romantic, but that starving artist in New York, it is real.
Yeah.
It is real. And it was hard to pay my rent for a long time. So
Yeah. It put you to the test.
yeah. And I was a political science major
Right.
in college. I was not a dance major. And that's an authentic intellectual interest of mine. And that served me well in that I felt comfortable reading and writing and even writing position papers. That's a fundraising proposal, right?
Right.
And so rather than supplement my dance income with waiting tables, I got a job at a nonprofit. And I did everything from make sure there was enough toilet paper to putting board packets together for the board meeting. It was a startup nonprofit. It had that startup mentality that I really thrived in. And I just learned from really smart people how a nonprofit works. And that's how I helped to support myself. I went off to Europe and I danced for a couple of years. And when I came back, I was in my late 20s and I was ready to make that transition. And so I had a comfort level-ish with nonprofits, and I knew I needed to stay in the art space.
Yeah.
I had to.
Well, it's a nice
Frankly, I didn't have a skill set anywhere else.
Right. And that's a nice happy medium to be able to bring your passion, your background arts into this space.
Yeah. And I talk to young people all the time. You know, Jess, you talk about, career development.
Yeah.
I talk to young people all the time about the field of arts leadership and arts administration that keeps you quite close, right, to the art in a way that uses different parts of your brain. That's really interesting and exciting.
So, our podcast is called Innovators at the Intersection, and you seem to be an amazing innovator. How do you feel? Because you were saying, I want to continue to open these schools, and 10 years I want to look back and see, we've made these accomplishments. So personally, how do you feel you're going to always be an innovator?
I think innovator, when it comes to me, is a really big word. Because I think I do my work very well with a lot of intention and thoughtfulness. If I'm being innovative in my work,
Okay.
I would say it is by thinking about philanthropy in non-traditional ways, which so often is the nonprofit holding their hand out like a pauper and the foundation kind of doling out the crumbs.
So could you go into that a little bit more about just the innovative way as opposed to kind of the more traditional, and because that's never really thought about it that way. Again, if you're not in that world.
And so there are people out there much smarter than me that are thinking about new paradigms in philanthropy. And in particular, trusting the organizations that you fund. That's kind of a revolutionary notion.
Okay.
That, of course, you understand the organization and you understand the work. You get to know folks in the organization. Do you trust them? Do you think they're good at their job? And if the answer is yes, then the funding need not come with a million hoops that they need to jump through, nor does it need to come with a report where they feel compelled to tell you how amazing everything is and how perfectly everything went over the last year. That's the traditional model. And that's what philanthropy has perpetuated completely. But in letting organizations know, you do not need to come to me with a false narrative around perfection. Let's talk about what didn't go so well.
Yeah, full transparency, right?
Yeah, because I want to learn. I have other grantees that are doing similar-ish work. If I can learn from you, I can be a better partner to other grantees. So let's really create a dialogue where the power dynamic isn't so skewed.
Sounds like you're doing amazing work and really impacting a lot of people's lives in such, important ways.
Thank you.
So
I have the best gig ever. Bye.